The Peter Schiff Show.
Welcome back, everybody. Hour 2 of the Peter Schiff Show is underway, and joining me now is Andrew Breitbart. Andrew publishes a news website, Breitbart.com. He's got 5 other sites, Breitbart.tv, Big Hollywood, Big Government, Big Journalism, and Big Peace. He's the author of Righteous Indignation, Excuse Me While I Save the World. Came out April 15th, 2011. He, in the past, has been an editor of at the Drudge Report. He also helped to launch the Huffington Post website. I think Huffington Post, Ariana Huffington's site was, I think, recently bought by AOL, if I'm not mistaken. And he's also a weekly commentator for the Washington Times. Andrew, thanks for being a guest.
Hey, Peter, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? I don't know if you heard any of the show right before the break. I had a lady call in who was telling me about her argument that she recently had with a liberal over what's the best way to eradicate poverty or help the poor, have a vibrant free market or have government programs. And, I know that you have made that journey yourself, right? You began as a liberal and had a conversion to conservative principles later in life, correct?
Yes, but I say so and I write so from OJ's former Brentwood. So I wasn't a person for whom poverty was an issue. I was a person for whom noblesse oblige sympathies towards the left side of the aisle were kind of embedded into my my software as a kid.
Yeah, there are a lot of, limousine liberals, a lot of wealthy kids grow up. And of course they want to rebel against their parents too, and that's one way to rebel is to be liberal. There's an old saying that if you're not a liberal by the time you're 22, you don't have a heart. If you're not a conservative by the time you're 28, you don't have a brain. But why don't you describe for me, your conversion and how you became a conservative?
Well, let me just state, because I think it's kind of timely. I'm sitting in Brentwood right now at the Brentwood Country Mart about an hour before I'm here to interview the David Mamet, the Pulitzer Prize winner, about his apostasy. So I am not alone. He just had his epiphany and his transformation from a far leftist to a conservative in his 60s. Mine happened in my 20s when my dad said to me upon graduating from a pointless American Studies degree back in 1991, he said, "You're going to have to get a job, and we're no longer going to pay for you." Yeah. And I wish I could give you a more complicated, complex, romantic thing. But when I had to pay for my own shoes, for my own rent, the self-esteem that they were trying to shove into my head, saying, "You're a great person. You're a liberal. You're a great person." I never got it. All I got was a nihilism. Like, why am I here? Why am I here? Working actually were the seeds that begin to sow the demise of my.
That's what happens.
My nihilism.
That's why the founding fathers didn't want people voting until they were 21, because they knew that most people back then, they started working when they were 13 or 14. So they figured that by the time they were 21, they had been in the workforce long enough that they would understand a government. My cousin, Michael Friedman, who is president of my metals company, Euro Pacific Precious Metals, always tells me the story how that, my dad was a conservative and Michael was liberal, and they always looked at his Uncle Irwin as, being the right of Attila the Hun, and, they grew up in a Jewish family in Connecticut, so my cousin was very liberal, and he remembers when he finally got his first job, and he looked at his paycheck, and he saw all the taxes that were taken out, that's when he had his epiphany, and he was with my father, so look at all his taxes. And my father said, "You're right. All those liberal programs that you like, they all cost money. What do you think, So it's very it's very easy to be liberal when it's not your money paying for the programs. But the minute he saw the taxes coming out of his pay, he had a change of heart."
Well, the big problem for us is that I'm Jewish. I assume you're Jewish as well. David Mamet is Jewish. David Horowitz is Jewish, and we've all made the movement from left to right, but there are way too many people in Brentwood, way too many people on the Upper West Side of Manhattan who control the media. Natural. I call it in Righteous Indignation, the Democrat media complex. It's the natural, organic alliance of the Democratic Party, liberal interest groups, and the mainstream media, and they're the ones who are shaping the American narrative day in and day out. And talk radio is simply a counter narrative that the left, with its anti-free speech instincts, simply can't abide by.
Yeah, the Jews, and I am Jewish, and the Jews are more democratic as a bloc. They vote more democratic than blacks. I mean, a lot of people might not even realize that, but a Jewish Republican is even more rare than a black Republican. And I suppose a black Jewish Republican would be the rarest animal of them all. But I like it when some of the people from the tribe make the conversion, because I know when I go to family functions, or you go to a bar mitzvah, you go to a wedding, if politics ever comes up, it's going to be a big argument because everybody there is going to be liberal.
Yeah, no, I just found out from somebody on Facebook who I've never met before. Said, "Hey, I met your cousin Seth. He can't stand you." And I'm like, "Oh, I think I see him at bar mitzvahs. I don't know him that well. I think he doesn't like my public persona." And my public persona is about trying to get in people's, into the left spaces to deal with the contradictions and the paradoxes of their positions, the hypocrisies. I mean, when you live on the west side of Los Angeles, most of these people are lecturing people to get a Prius, when most of them fly back and forth between the East Coast and the West Coast on private Lear jets. And it is so obnoxious that they have standards that they want, that middle America that they look down on, they want them to live one way while they can live the other way, while they feel morally superior, that they're supporting the politically correct position.
And that's all it is. And a lot of it too is they want to feel good about themselves. They want to be looked upon as being charitable and kind, even if they're not. That's why I think Hollywood falls into this trap, because everybody is concerned about their reputation and how they appear to their fans, and they want to appear generous. Of course, it's not generosity with their own money, it's with other people's money. And so they take opinions that are popular, like, oh, I'm in favor of the minimum wage law because it's terrible that people should have to earn less than $7 an hour. Well, okay, but they don't want to connect the dots and say, well, that means that people who aren't worth $7 an hour are permanently unemployed. And they're denied the opportunity to ever better themselves and to ever learn more skills and acquire more skills so that they can earn $10 an hour, $20 an hour. Instead, they're trapped in poverty forever because I want to feel good about myself. I want to pretend that I care, and I show how much I care by supporting these crazy programs.
Well, all I can say is you're right, but I can also say something that's kind of upbeat. Is that out here in Hollywood, where the cultural narrative is laid every single day, and their business model is kind of imploding right now because they continue to make movies that the American people don't want, and there is an underground Hollywood conservative movement here. It reminds me a lot of the Tea Party. It started before the Tea Party. These people started to sense, wait a sec, we made a deal with the devil back in the early 1970s when the left took absolute control of this town, and we said, oh, we can deal with these people. Well, for the last 40 years, these people have been forced into the deepest closet you can possibly imagine. Because if you mention that you're a conservative, there's a thing called plausible deniability blacklisting that goes on in this town, and I witnessed it all the time. I know black conservatives, I know Hispanic conservatives, I know punk rockers, I know directors, I know writers and actors, and the majority of them keep it to themselves. But the emergence of the Tea Party, the emergence of an underground Hollywood conservative movement shows me that the left has pushed too hard. And I think that over the next 20 to 40 years, you're going to see a major pushback.
Well, let's hope so. Anyway, we'll continue this discussion after the break. You're listening to The Peter Schiff Show on SchiffRadio.com.
Welcome back to your source of sanity in an insane world. It's The Peter Schiff Show.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Peter Schiff. With me, Andrew Breitbart, author of Righteous Indignation. Excuse me while I save the world. Obviously a reference to the liberal elitist who believes that they know better than the market and they can save the world. And, one of the reasons that the liberals are so vilify the conservatives and why maybe people in Hollywood are afraid to stand up is because the liberals, when they actually believe that the programs that they want are going to help, and when conservatives oppose them, the liberals think, well, they just must be mean. They must not care. and they don't understand that they oppose them because they're going to do more harm than good. And the Republicans understand, or the conservatives understand, that liberals aren't bad people. They're just misinformed and ignorant. And so we don't have the same vicious rhetoric that they do. Would you agree with that?
Oh, I absolutely would. I absolutely agree with that. I would say that since they control the mainstream media, and they just do, the New York Times, the Los Angeles Times, the Chicago Tribune, ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, they know what isn't being controlled by them, and it's AM talk radio and it's Fox News, and they want to do everything they can to shut it down. They know what doesn't go along. They don't protest ABC, CBS, and NBC or the New York Times because they know that it's part of their program. And part of their program in shaping the cultural narrative is setting some pretty blatant setups that are easily opposable through just debate with these people. And that is, they're for the environment. If you're on the left, you're for the environment. If you're on the left, you're for the children. If you're on the left, you're anti-war. Well, what does that mean about conservatives?
Yeah.
It means that we're against the environment, we're against the children, and we're for a permanent war. We want war. We want a permanent state of war. That's how simple it is at the street level when you meet a person at a cocktail party.
And the thing is, they don't look at, let's say, education. They say, that they're in favor of the children. But look at the quality of the education now that we've turned it over to the government. And it's the conservatives that are looking about school vouchers and school choice to give parents the ability to take their kids out of failing government schools. And it's the left that wants to trap them in these schools where they don't get an education, and then they pretend that they care about the children.
Well, yes. It's interesting here because there's a movie, Waiting for Superman, that was made by the same producers that made Al Gore's movie, The Inconvenient Truth, and it was made by a liberal, a profound liberal, who followed the head of the school system, Michelle Rhee, in Washington, D.C., and it showed exactly what we're talking about. It took the conservative position. A liberal took the conservative position. The movie will make you cry because these people don't care about results, the progressives, the unions. They care about maintaining the status quo. But what happens when this movie is made? The same people that turned it, Inconvenient Truth into a mockery, but an Oscar award-winning mockery, will ignore Waiting for Superman. So even when the Hollywood people wake up, they're going to ignore them because they need to maintain their moral superiority at all costs.
Yeah. So how was your experience over at the Huffington Post? Because
well, I was Ariana Huffington's researcher back when she was a conservative, quote unquote conservative, and the first thing that we did was that I did with her, and this was in my 20s, was dig up Larry Lawrence, Clinton's #1 donor from Arlington National Cemetery. I'm telling you, that was fun, digging up a fraud who shouldn't be buried in Arlington National Cemetery, who made up his war history, who was granted a waiver by President Clinton because he donated so much money to his campaign. That was fun. But when Ariana did her pirouette in about the year 2000 and became a lefty, I said, "See you later, Ariana." But
now that's very interesting, because whenever somebody goes from the right to the left, that's very suspicious to me, that maybe there's something, because it doesn't seem like a natural evolution of political thinking. You normally go from the left to the right. So if somebody makes that kind of conversion, sometimes I doubt whether it's genuine or not, or there is something else behind the scenes. What's your take?
Well, I would say this. It took me about 3 or 4 years to figure out that I was conservative, okay? I didn't understand it. There was a process. I watched Ariana do it overnight. She must have had an interesting night's sleep. And the very people that ignored her in Brentwood as a conservative now were breaking down her gates to hang out in her living room. So that's my opinion on it.
Yeah, she couldn't have got. I don't think she could have got a good deal with AOL, right? If she was conservative.
No, I'm creating the Huffington Post of the right, as it were. A group blog. Breaking stories that nobody else will break. And there is no AOL trying to buy me for $315 million, even when I have co-creator of the Huffington Post. I mean, I was the architect of it in my resume. I mean, the left will support its own, and that is to the detriment of
a little
those
bit
on the right. But I created it. The audience needs to know I created it, and I said to Ariana's face, because she knows where I stand, I said, this will be great for you. You'll be the queen of the left-wing blogosphere. It'll be great for the right because they'll get to see how crazy your new friends are.
And so I guess also a different experience you had working with Drudge in the Drudge Report.
The best. I met him when I was a slacker, and he was something of a slacker in around 1995, and I saw what he was doing online, and I said to my wife upon meeting him as he drove away after our first meeting in a Hyundai, and it putted away. This guy was working at CBS gift shop at the time. I said, that guy's going to change the world. That guy's a visionary. He understands media better than anyone that I've ever met. And boy, was I right. He still has it, too. That simple black and white page with headlines is the most exciting place to go at any given moment. You know.
So how active are you now with the Tea Parties out there in California?
Well, not just in California. I'll be in Arkansas this week. I'll be in Detroit this week. Then I head to New York City. I'm traveling around the country to try and keep the enthusiasm up, because I think people in the Tea Party understand this, and I hope people that are on the sidelines who agree with the Tea Party join it. We finally figured out what the left figured out is how potent and powerful it is for collective action out in the public. It's scaring the daylights out of them, and it's an off-election year. And I know that the Tea Party is going to come back like it did in 2010 and 2012, but we need to do everything we can to keep this resurgent conservative, especially fiscal conservative movement alive, because if we lose in 2012, we could lose this country as we know it.
Absolutely. As I've said, I think this is going to be the most important election we've had. We've got to take this country back, not only from the left, but from the left that has, captured the right. The Republicans have participated in this, and we need a change in ideology 180 degrees. And we need to re-embrace the free market principles, sound money, limited government that made the country great. Anyway, hey, appreciate you being out there helping to spread the word. Thanks for being